Welcome to the Do Good X podcast, a sanctuary from the entrepreneurial grind. Hosts Kimberly Danielle and Stephen Lewis, advocates for impactful entrepreneurship, guide you on the path where purpose meets business. Join us to slow down, reconnect, and explore the challenges of under-resourced entrepreneurs, uncovering the unique journey of building businesses that make a difference. Now, your hosts.
Hello, I want to welcome you to the Do Good X podcast. My name is Stephen Lewis, and I am one of the co-hosts of this podcast. And I am a catalyst for positive change in communities and businesses. Now, for over 2 decades, I've had the opportunity to inspire leaders and entrepreneurs to live and work on purpose with intention, with faith, and a commitment to their well-being. And so I want to thank you for tuning in, and I want to introduce my co-host, Kimberly Danielle.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully you are joining us again. So thank you for tuning in today. My name is Kimberly Danielle. I am a community builder, coach, and communication strategist who comes from generations of faith-driven entrepreneurs who believe that our purpose should drive us to contribute to the common good. And I am excited to be here with Stephen today and to have a wonderful guest who is not new to the Do Good X community, but she might be new to you. So here today we have Raquel Wilson, who is an award-winning educator, a published author, an international speaker, and her workbook series, Black Wealth Freedom, has impacted over 2,000 readers in 7 different countries. She is formerly a teacher who now serves as CEO of Raise the Bar Investments, which supports institutions in learning and development related to productivity and personal finance. She is also founder and CEO of ForOurLastNames app, gamifying wealth building for first-generation wealth builders. This app will empower users to build generational wealth for their last names. She has a Bachelor of Science in Public Health, a certificate in women's entrepreneurship. Raquel has a bachelor's of science in public health, a certificate in women's entrepreneurship, and is a certified financial education instructor, a candidate to become a certified financial therapist, and a graduate student specializing in investment management while also pursuing her Master of Divinity. Honestly, I don't know how she does it all while building her business. I mean, that's a long list. Stephen and I have had the gift of having Raquel in our 2023 cohort for the Do Good X Startup Accelerator. We knew from the beginning that she had the faith, the mindset, the passion, and the commitment to be a successful entrepreneur. I vividly remember our conversation with her after she applied for the accelerator program. And when we finished that call, Stephen and I both looked at each other and said, she's got the goods. So I think from our conversation today, you will know that she has got the goods as an entrepreneur to really drive change and to make an impact through her business. Her passion is to close the wealth gaps that exist through education and empower financial wellness through stewardship. And I am so grateful for the work that she is up to just on a personal level. And I am grateful for the impact that she has made and will continue to make for others. So welcome, Raquel. We are grateful that you are joining us here today.
Well, thank you both so much for having me. I'm glad I didn't put on blush today because you're making me blush already. Thank you.
So I talked a little bit about your passion and your path and your business. It focuses on wealth gaps that exist. Can you share, just starting out, can you share 1 to 2 data points that demonstrate why this focus for you is important?
Absolutely. Well, number 1, data without a story is irrelevant. And I learned that in the classroom. I learned that my students' mastery level on science or math didn't really tell anything about them without talking about the trauma that they've experienced through the Tulsa Race Massacre in their genetics and how that impacts how they saw the purpose of science and Henrietta Lacks and the purpose of math and how that relates to entrepreneurship, right? So I first learned the importance of data and storytelling in the classroom. So when it comes to my business and my own journey as a first generation wealth builder, the pieces of data that stick out the most to me are, number one, McKinsey and Company found that 60% of minorities have no assets, specifically when we're looking at Black Americans being Black women and Black men. I would also say that we found that the racial wealth gap cost us upwards of $2.1 trillion. So when we're thinking about the racial wealth gap, this is usually in relation to the stocks, the assets that someone has invested in the market, or the real estate that they have owned, right? At least that's how that study specifically was drawing out that data. But specifically those two data points, 60% of minorities have no assets owned, and that's a problem. And also, $2.1 trillion is what the cost is of the racial wealth gap to the U.S. economy, not just us as taxpayers, but the workforce as well. And so it's an individual and an institutional problem. And that's why I'm really here to help in solving it.
So Raquel, this is an important topic. And one of the things that, as I read a recent interview featuring you where you shared, launching your business wasn't just about finding capital, but it was also about recognizing the power of your voice. As a driving force towards this goal of closing the racial wealth gap. So share with us about how discovering the power of your voice helps give focus to the type of capital that are most fitting for you, your business, and especially as a Black woman.
Well, I would say finding my voice was more of a journey of finding the right environment, finding the right soil to be planted in the same way that certain plants are full sun and it's not wise to plant it in a partial shade place. I realized that my voice needed a certain type of support. My business needed a certain type of funding. And being a serial entrepreneur, I knew that with my first business, which, as you mentioned, the Black Wealth Freedom series in our books, that would require maybe grant funding or pitch funding or maybe even accelerator funding. But with my second business, ForOurLastNames, which is a fintech, that might require different types of funding, such as VC funding or even CDFI funding, debt funding, right? I found that when it came to understanding my voice, I had to, number one, understand who God made me to be. Number two, understand my gifts, skills, and talents. And then number three, that portion that I just talked about, where is the right place to plant this seed, to plant my voice in the current environment?
So just as a follow-up question, I'm wondering, as you think about your own voice and this kind of racial wealth gap, it's both individual and it's all institutional. To what point is helping individuals find their voice around this particular issue important to the cause? And then how do you help institutions or systems to give voice to this particular matter, particularly as it relates to closing the racial wealth gap for those who do not have any assets or very minimal assets at all?
Oh, loaded question, two-part question. And that's actually why we've developed ForOurLastNames to be this two-part marketplace to support the individual in healing their financial trauma. And for those that aren't familiar with financial trauma, in short, I'll just say it's what makes your heart beat fast when you make a financial decision, right? And then the other side of how we're solving this problem with ForOurLastNames is actually connecting the individual to the financial professionals they need throughout their entire wealth journey, whether they just complete our real estate financial freedom pathway and then get connected to a non-predatory residential lender and get connected to a non-predatory realtor, right? Or someone just completes the investing pathway and now gets connected to a financial advisor, right? We understand that this $2.1 trillion cost to the U.S. economy of the racial wealth gap and other wealth gaps that are similar, like gender wealth gap, cannot be resolved by just an individual solution or just an institutional solution. We need both. And we specifically believe that the workforce industry overall is really the specific institution that needs to step up and be willing to create some change. And we're hoping to partner with many workforce partners to do that.
That's good. Thank you.
So I know you put in a lot of hours to really learn more about this problem that exists. Over 5,000 hours, which I'm sure at this point is probably much more than that, which led to the founding of For Our Last Names.
Oh,
So
yes.
clearly you put the time in to learn about your customer, about to learn and to learn from those who will benefit from your business, and to learn about the market. For entrepreneurs who are just starting out and validating their business idea, what advice would you give them in the early stage to best set their business up for success?
The best advice I could give is do not be afraid to put in the time. In reference to 5,000 hours, that was my first milestone in my wealth journey in relation to time, because it took me about 5,000 hours to learn how to pay off my undergraduate student loans from investing. And now, moving into this second business, it has definitely taken maybe 3 times of that time to understand more about not only the business environment that I am launching into, but also the hard skills relating to business, marketing, sales, just learning about sales cycles in itself. It takes time, let alone understanding your customer. And if you're B2B, business to business, AKA selling to institutions, it takes time to also learn about the buyer beyond just the individual user of your tool. So I would say be willing to put in the time, um, and do a SWOT analysis. Understand your strengths, your weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats to not only you as an individual, because you as a CEO or CTO or COO, whatever you are in your business, for those that are listening, you are an aspect of your business brand, right? But also be willing to put in the hours and observe how a SWOT analysis can benefit your business as a brand as well. So whether it's 1,000, 10,000, 5,000, they say it takes 10,000 hours minimum for someone to be an expert in their field. So be willing to put in the time and be strategic, especially through a tool like SWOT analysis, on how you spend your time.
As a follow-up question, let me ask you this. Are there 1 or 2 tips that you could share with early stage entrepreneurs as it relates to raising capital? You have done a number of different kind of pitches. You've kind of approached a lot of different type of investment strategies. So maybe you can just share 1 or 2 tips that you think are particularly instructive for those who are trying to raise capital.
Absolutely. Number one, practice in the mirror. I'm in my home office today for those that are watching us, and quite literally next to me, I have a mirror that allows me to not only practice my business pitch, practice my personal brand pitch, but it also allows me to feel confident as I walk into meetings, whether it is virtually or in person. So practice, but also practice in the mirror, practice recording yourself. It's just so important to practice, and also practice with feedback. It's not about practice making perfect, it's practice making permanent. So how you practice is how you will perform. I ran track in high school, and we had a sweatshirt that said, pretty ugly face at practice, pretty face at the finish line. Because we practice with intentionality and grit during practice, and those are hard days. If you ran states and track, you know. But when we got to the finish line, and in business that relates to when you get to your launch day, when you get to your sales milestone, right? When you get to an impact milestone, you'll have that pretty face because you knew you put in that time in practicing. So number one, practice in the mirror, practice with feedback, practice with recording. And number two, I would say be resilient in your searching. You will get more no's than you get yeses, especially if you're looking into grants or VC, honestly, any type of funding. It's not always going to be a yes, right? So I would say just be resilient. And when you do have those wins, celebrate them within your means. In today's culture and American westernized culture, we often discuss celebration in the form of things that you have to spend money on or spend a lot of money on. And especially as a certified financial education instructor, I have to say that not every bit of pleasure requires a lot of money to be spent, or even any money sometimes. You can celebrate by walking in nature. You can celebrate. I love to go to the park or be in my garden. I love to spend time with friends. Ultimately, celebrate as you succeed.
So, anyone who listened to me share a little bit about you when I introduced you can gather that you are a non technical founder of a tech based company. So, what led you to develop a tech based business, and what challenges and what benefits have you experienced on your entrepreneurial journey given your non technical background?
What led me to start For Our Last Names, which is this fintech, wealth tech, ed tech company, is my background as an educator. I believe that the best founders are people that have a deep understanding of the problem and have a deep passion to solve it. And also have the ability to recruit people to help you reach that reality, right? So although I did not have the technical experience to build an app, I did have those two aspects that I just mentioned there. And I was able to recruit my mentor for my first business to then become my chief technology officer for this second and current business. So my passion is what attracted her to be my mentor. My understanding of the problem is what attracted her to be my mentor. And thankfully, she also has this will and desire to reach underserved populations as a fellow woman of color. And we were able to come together to build and create what is now and what will continue to be For Our Last Names. So ultimately, that's just really what it took to be able to come into tech as a non-tech founder, be passionate, know the problem, and find the people that also have some similar passion and meet your weaknesses or gaps in skill.
That's pretty amazing that your mentor became your colleague and is working alongside you. That's pretty amazing.
Indeed. Well, Raquel, we're going to take a slight turn and kind of move to our resource roundup. And this is where we explore various resources and practical tools that will help support underrepresented entrepreneurs as they build their business. So here are a few questions. One is to acknowledge that you are doing a lot. So between school, speaking engagements, working on your business, raising capital, what are one or two resources that have helped you best organize your schedule and assist you with your productivity?
I would say number one, an assistant. For any serial entrepreneur, virtual assistant is key. She is a key piece of my team. Thank you, Christine. And I would also say in the age that we are in, there are AI empowered virtual assistants. So individuals can look into those options as well. I also really like Notion. Some folks like Trello as well, to be able to organize all areas of my life in boards. That actually gets me very excited. So organization is key, number one, not only individually through tools like Notion and Trello, but also with teams, such as virtual assistants or AI-empowered virtual assistants.
So, at one point that you shared earlier, you were a solo tech founder, which was a challenge in being accepted to or participating in various accelerators or other programs. So for entrepreneurs who are currently solo tech founders, what are some programs that they should explore that will assist them in building their business?
There are so many resources that our tax dollars pay for, so please leverage them, y'all. I will say that one that is top of mind right now is the U.S. Small Business Administration. Very grateful to have been awarded Young Entrepreneur of the Year for the state of Oklahoma from them. And they have, and their state agencies have so many different resources. So just Google your state name and then SBA, and there are resources there available for you. They can also help with government funding. I will also say that our nonprofits in our country do a great job. Forum for Theological Exploration, for example, Do Good X, amazing programs that can support throughout one's lifetime, whether you are an academic with their PhD fellowships and bringing that into your work as a founder and the research that backs what you do, or whether you are someone that just has general skills and has a passion and sees a problem and can produce a solution. I think both government and philanthropy provide really great resources to fund your business. And you can't forget this either. Your job is your number one investor. They're a silent partner, even if they don't know it. So for those of us that are employed and also run our business, because that is how I ran my business for the first 3 of 4 years, Leverage and invest your money. It's so important to invest in your business. Of course, invest in yourself because you are your first and most important asset. But know that your job is that first investor to yourself and your business. So ultimately, leverage your job, leverage the government resources, and leverage our philanthropic resources as well.
Okay. Well, what books, leaders, or organizations, or maybe even online resources should people look into if they want to join you in your cause of addressing the wealth gap through a business idea?
Well, I would be remiss to not mention my own books, not for promo of myself, but simply because there's a reason that they have reached 7 different countries and over 2,000 readers when this was just a project that started in my own classroom here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The Black Wealth Freedom series is a 3-part book series. And for those of us that are joining on video, you'll be able to see them here. They're workbooks that really help us understand how wealth gaps have been created. From the first book, Holistic Money Mindset, Mental Preparation for Abundance, we do not act because we have not been mentally unlocked. And our money mindset definitely plays a role in not only building wealth, but also retaining and transitioning wealth. So that's why it's the first book of the series, and surprisingly, a bestseller among women. When it comes to the second book, Personal Finance Crash Course, What They Didn't Teach You in School, this is based on the curriculum I taught my students, and not only goes over the words of wealth and different ways to think about investing and multiple streams of income, all of those core pieces of personal finance in 75 pages or less to make it achievable. I would say that everyone, to dismantle the wealth gaps in their own personal life, has to be financially literate. And it's not our fault that our school systems didn't teach about it, but it is our opportunity. It is an opportunity that we have now to learn, to be empowered and educated. And then this third book, the Money Moves Workbook, Achieving Your Wealth Goals in 12 Months or Less. I use this. I still use this to this day in digitized form. And that's also why our workbooks, when purchased from our website, have the digital copies as well. But I use this to be able to move halfway across the country right upon graduation, to be able to have the money for that. I use this to pay off my student loans. I use this to purchase my first car. I use this to purchase both of my homes. I would not be able to personally dismantle the racial wealth gap and gender wealth gap in my life without implementing these tools. And that's the only way I could have created them, from implementation within my own life and my own journey, as well as the knowledge I've learned as being a certified financial education instructor. As I think about different resources, I'm visualizing my bookcase in my living room. And there are actually quite a few that I would love to respectfully and honor these authors and share them with you for the show notes afterwards, because I will probably butcher the titles, but I'm a visual learner. So I'm seeing the pictures in my mind.
That's good. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Raquel. Can you share where people can purchase your books? And we'll also share those in the show notes as well.
Yes. Well, our books can be purchased individually as well as bookstores that are looking into host our book in their stores at rtbinvestments.org. That stands for Raise the Bar Investments, because we raise the bar for your mind and money. Now, if you're interested in learning more about our app or getting signed up for the wait list, we also have our workbooks linked on that website, and that is ForOurLastNames.io, as in building generational wealth for our last names.
So thank you also for sharing Do Good X as a plug, as a supporter for potential entrepreneurs. And if you are early in the entrepreneurial journey and want to access more resources to help build your business for good, go to dogoodx.org. Here you can find resources and join our Do Good X LinkedIn community, where we share tools and tips and provide entrepreneurs and change makers with a community of support. So we hope that you join us. And now we are going to shift into our segment Off the Cuff. And we have a series of questions for Raquel that she has not been provided. And we want you to just share what comes up top of mind as we ask these questions. So I'm going to dive in with our first one. What has been the greatest piece of advice that you have received as an entrepreneur?
Overall, I would say trust God's timing. And that's because, and I'll say this too, for my people that are not religious or spiritual, I was always raised to make the 1 year plan, 5 year plan, 10 year plan. And it's great to have a plan in front of you. But there are some things that whomever created us, whatever created us, there is something that can serendipitously change our plans. And instead of being stressed about that, instead of being in a sulk season, as I like to say, it's best to be able to be flexible, right? Everyone can apply flexibility within their lives, adaptability within their lives. So for me, that means trust God's plan. For others, that might mean be willing to be flexible and open to how life changes. But for me, that has been trust God's plan.
So given that, what role does faith play in your life, but more specifically in developing your business?
To do business meetings with God, to be frank, to be able to sit with my iPad and my Bibles, because I like to sit with two translations, one that's more simplified, one that's more literal, and to allow God to show me where in the word entrepreneurs are highlighted, where in the word economic development is discussed as not only a institutional practice, but an individual social justice issue. And especially when we get to the New Testament, Jesus, my favorite social justice warrior. Hey, there's a reason that money is discussed as one of the, honestly, in my opinion, the most as a social justice issue, especially when we look in the New Testament. So I would say for me, being able to not only sit and have that, as some would say, self-care time to just sit and plan and be uninterrupted, but also that time to listen. We talk a lot about prayer. Prayer is also listening. So I'll just make sure that I write down what I receive in that time. And the more I've applied that within my businesses, the better that has been, from specific things to general values like stewardship and integrity.
What is one thing you do in the mornings to set a positive tone for your day?
Well, I lightly reference this, and excuse me if you hear some tapping. When it comes to my mornings, I like to really focus on the spiritual discipline of simplicity. And with my personal brand, I haven't talked too much about that, but it's called the pace of productivity and how we can increase productivity within our personal, professional, and financial lives. And so in this season, I've started going through my own simplicity planner and just making sure that my day is not only as productive as possible through the skills and gifts and talents that I have, but also through simple practices. So I don't know what will come of this simplicity planner that I have right now. I don't know if I'll share it with the market later on. But that has been a very sound part of both my morning and night routine, or my rising and evening routine, rising and resting, to engage in that simplicity planner and just find simple practices throughout the day.
What's one value that guides your work in the world?
Do I have to pick one? Okay. If I had to pick between integrity and excellence, which are what the I and the E and raise the bar stand for, I would say excellence, because that is another form of integrity. I think that we are all created with value, and when we realize that value, we have a duty to engage with that in the world with excellence, with the best of our ability, even if we wake up feeling like we want to go back to sleep, to do what you can with the time you've been given.
I love how you still snuck two in there. I see you. I see you. How much of your success do you attribute to your faith versus your own grit, will, and hustle?
What dropped in my spirit there was 99.9. I believe that God has the opportunity to do the super, and I have the responsibility to do the natural. Even when we look at the three Hebrew boys in the furnace, they said they had faith that God had the ability to do. Even when we get into the Hebrew, it gets real deep. But they had faith that God had the ability to do. And even if God did not save them from the fiery furnace, that did not discount God's goodness. And so I know that I have the responsibility to do the natural, and God has the ability to do the super. But even when it's just, say, my skills or talents getting me in the door, that doesn't mean that God was not good or God did not bless me in this space or in this situation. God is still good. God is still able, and he still can work through me. So I'm just here floating on a cloud of grace, quite literally. And that 0.1% that is not the cloud of grace is the skills, gifts, and talents. Those are the skill, gifts, and talents that God has given me to do work within this world and bring good from heaven on earth.
So complete this sentence. Because of my entrepreneurial endeavors, communities will be or are more able to do
Liberation, communal liberation, financial liberation.
Thank you so much, Raquel, for joining us today, for centering us around the wealth gap that exists, money mindset that needs to happen for all of us. Even if we don't have a business, we still have to have a sound money mindset to have a legacy and generational wealth that exists. So thank you for that. Thank you for your work. And thank you for the gift of giving us the opportunity to journey with you thus far. And I look forward to seeing the continued success of you as an entrepreneur and for our last names.
Indeed. Thank you.
Well, thank you both. I appreciate you, Kimberly and Stephen. I look forward to your continued success in your personal lives, the continued success of Do Good X and our entrepreneurs, and everyone that's listening. I really do hope that everyone goes off in abundance and lives lives in liberation and peace.
Hello, everyone. We have not had a mystery segment in a little while, but here we are back again
Here
with
we are.
a mystery segment to just ponder a question. Ponder a question together. So today, I'm going to ask Stephen, what mindset do you currently have or need to develop to position yourself for success? You've accomplished much. There's much more that you have yet to accomplish. But what mindset gets you to that and is going to get you where you want to go?
Yeah, I think it's a mindset of can do. There's a lot of things that I think, we place limitations upon ourselves, or we say we don't have these gifts or those skills or these relationships or these particular assets. But in the end, the question is, what can you do? And if you have a mindset of a can do kind of attitude and perception, then I think you can probably accomplish a whole lot more than what you ever anticipated that you could. So I think that goes a long way in terms of, because within it is this idea that you have agency. But the other thing too is that you have vision for what could be and that you can work towards it. And that every day, if you keep, waking up with a can do kind of attitude and you start chipping away and building towards that particular vision of what could be, you may look up and realize that you surpass your vision and really reach for what you may have thought was impossible. And I think that's an important part of, success and entrepreneurial endeavors, that you always want to kind of set goals for yourself and, and then to kind of work towards it, because it's better to have a goal and not reach it, or maybe even exceed it, than to not have any goals or vision about where you want to go. And I think in the end, with a can do kind of attitude, it really places the agency within you and really allows you to work in such a way where serendipity and synchronicity become the wind beneath your wings to help you fly and move towards your goals and your vision of what it is that you want to accomplish in life.
Yeah, that listening to you, it brings up two things. One is how much we get in our own way of that can do mindset and the thoughts that come up that I know a lot of entrepreneurs face around imposter syndrome, around not having what they think or we think we need to have to get what it is that we desire, but really centering around what we have that can help us to accomplish what it is that we desire, that can do attitude and shifting those moments of challenge and maybe what some might think as negative thoughts into positive action and positive affirmations to get to that can do mindset. So that it brings that up for me, and then it also brings up for me a personal story. I grew up, I'm a PK, I'm a preacher's kid, and my mom is a retired teacher. So, faith driven, educational driven household. And at a very early age, whenever I said that I can't do something, so young, my mom said, "No, we don't use that language. I can. You can do all things through Christ Jesus who strengthens you." And so she instilled in me the mindset of I still use that mindset of not saying I can't and transitioning that to I can till this day under a different kind of belief and support and foundation underneath that, but I still use that same mindset to help to drive me because we can do more than what we really think we can.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I was thinking about where I thought you was going to go is what my mom used to tell me is can't never did anything. And so you need to always think about what we can do and to realize that we stand on shoulders of those who didn't have barely two nickels to rub together to make a dime. And yet they built schools, they created institutions, churches, social services organizations, etc. They went on and create a kind of entrepreneurial kind of reality with less than what we have today. And so I think if we can keep it in perspective in the long arc of others that have come before us and those who come after us, we realize that we can probably accomplish a whole lot more than what we thought we could, if we had that kind of can do kind of mindset. And so, when I think about my own family and what they were able to do with the land that, the money that they were able to scrounge up to create the types of, to purchase land and to build farms and to build churches and to build schools, all those types of educational and spiritual kinds of entrepreneurial endeavors, I think about, wow, how can I not say that I'm not able or can't in that regards? And so for me, that helps put in perspective, some of the ways in which we think we can't do something that we, you recognize like, oh, there are those who come before me that have done a whole lot more with less. Surely I can take the resources that I have and to work with them in such ways that can bless others and hopefully create the kind of world or the kind of vision of the world that I want to see and I get to help participate in through my entrepreneurial endeavors.
Absolutely. Between God, our ancestors, the path that they've paved, the divine that's in us, the skills and strength and gifts that we possess, lean into all of that. So if you are tuning in, I encourage you, if you tell yourself that you can't, or if those words come out of your mouth, that you immediately remove that from your vocabulary and turn that into I can.
That's right.
And you really think about all that you come with, all the community, both physically present and spiritually present, that is supporting you toward what it is you were created and designed to do in the world, and you lean into that and you move forward.
Amen. You're right. It's the spirit of Ubuntu. I am because we are. We are entrepreneurs and innovators and folks who've been able to take and plant and seed financial resources and other resources and create all kinds of things. And because I know that, um, is the reality of the people and the stock of individuals and the community of ancestors and great cloud of witnesses that we've come from in that spirit of Ubuntu. I am also able to do those things because I come from a community that has and is able and was able to do exceedingly incredible things that we can only imagine was only, maybe only been possible that we can actually realize today. And so, we sit under trees that we did not plant, and we drink from wells that we did not dig, as the saying says, and realize that we are just a part of a long chain of those who come before us. And we too then get to set the example for a new generation that come after us and do hopefully exceeding more than what we could even imagine with the resources that have been entrusted to them to create the kinds of businesses and to shape the type of world that I think we all long for each of us.
Thank you for listening to the Do Good X podcast. To continue the conversation or access our resources, visit www.dogoodx.org. Join us again for conversations that will nourish your soul, ignite your dreams, and empower you to build an impactful business, one intentional step at a time. Until then, keep striving, thriving, and doing good.